Ever wondered how your GPS knows exactly where you are? Or how skateboard ramps, roads, and roller coasters all have the perfect angle? Well, it's all about this one thing: slope, the secret language of lines that tells us how steep or flat something really is. Welcome to Module 8, the coordinate plane and slope. Today, we'll explore how to plot points, find slopes, and unlock the geometry behind motion, design, and direction. By the end, you'll know how to plot points like a pro, spot parallel and perpendicular lines instantly, and calculate the slope even from the real-world examples. So grab your pen and paper, get ready to rise and run, and let's make math come alive, right here in Module 8. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. My name is Mahmoud Kiasari and welcome to the final chapter of Module 8, which we were talking about the functions, we're talking about the lines, about the slope, which I obviously know that it says rise over run. And today we are going to talk a little bit about some of the previous sections, just for a couple of slides, and after that we are going to apply them in the real world. As I just told you, we can apply everything that we just learned from the previous sections into our environment. For instance, when we are talking about the saving of money, when we are talking about so many other things that we will talk about it today. So right now, let's start it. So today we are going to modeling with linear functions and sequences. And today we are trying to talk about modeling, slope, intercept, and the sequences, which is going to be about the prediction itself. So let's just talk about examples at the beginning because that is an important part. After that, we will talk about the concept that we had before. As I just told you, we do have different kind of situations and conditions in ourselves that they follow a pattern. For instance, if we are talking about the phone bill, that guy would start with the constant amount of money that we have to pay each time, plus other kind of wages, that those kind of wages are completely based on our consumption, or how, for example, we are going to use the data itself. Another thing would be about the wages itself. So it would be started from the bonus, and after that we have dollars per hours. After that we do have the speed, which we know it would be increasing gradually, but most of the time we would start from zero. And after that, if we increasing gradually, again, we do have the linear condition. And at the end, we are talking about the saving. So we start some kind of saving with the money itself, and if we put some money each week, each day over the top of that, and it would increasing gradually. So I can predict that based on my information that I just earned from the question itself, I can predict that what would happen, for example, in next 20 weeks, right? So after that one, let's just have the story itself, because we can convert all of these conditions that we call it as straight story to a linear condition. And we know in each linear condition, we had different important sections. The very first important is the intercept, means that where my story begins. Is it start from zero? Is it start from something positive or something negative? After that, I have to look at the slope. It means that what is the rise over run, as we know from the previous video, is delta y over delta x. After that, how I can make some kind of equation for that. Y is equals mx plus b, which I will talk about it in a few slides later, but for those of you that don't have any idea what's going on, I seriously recommend to saw my previous videos. That's going to be so helpful. So right now I do have the straight line, and it would start from some point, it would goes from one point to another, and here's my responsibility in order to use it for something. For example, if I want to predict it, what would happen after 10 hours, what would happen after 10 days, I have to look for it. And also, if you remember, at some points when we are talking about the rise over run, the numbers or units are the same. On that point, I don't have any unit measurement for my slope. But at another point, I do have some condition, especially in the real life, that my rise is not going to be as the same as my run. By the same, my units would be different, so I have to be very careful about that. So at this point, I do have the constant rate, and I do have as start. So what is that constant rate? The constant rate is something that we call it as slope over here. As you all know, the slope is rise over run, or sometimes we call it as a rate. So what was some rise means that what would happen if I move from this point to this point? What would happen to my y value? Again, if you guys remember, the whole thing that we are talking that has the x-axis and y-axis is something that we call as a coordinate plane, and each point on this coordinate plane follow two things, x and y. So by this some kind of way of writing them down, I can understand that at each specific point or at each specific time, where is that exact point if we are talking about two-dimensional system that has x and y. So I move from this point to this point. So what is the rise? Again, if you guys remember, I can call that x1, y1, x2, and y2, and I can see that how much is the difference between the y's by y2 subtracted by y1, and again x2 subtracted by x1 itself. So I can easily find my slope. After that, another important part would be about intercept. If you guys remember, I told you not all the lines that we have would start from 0. Sometimes would start from here, and it completely depends on my something that we call as a vortex. What was the vortex? Vortex was this line. So I have to look and I have to see that at this condition that my x is 0, what is happening to my y, right? So the y again was the y-axis. It means that what is the intersection of my line and y? So is it here? So based on that, I do have the interception, or I do have the starting point that we call it as the b itself. At the end, by combining everything together, I do have y is equals mx plus b. It means that I can write down an equation for each linear condition based on my starting point, based on the rate of the changes, and if I do have the x point or if I do have the x value, I can find the y easily, and it's so simple. So again, m is the rise over run itself, the b is the starting point, it is a specific point, or at a point that my y-x is equals to 0, because we know if we put 0 over here, what would happen to this kind of expression, or what would happen to this term? It would be completely 0, so my y is going to be itself, which is the starting point. So after that, let's start with an example. As I just told you, if I do have the phone, obviously I have to pay some kind of bills for that, right? So at this point, I'm trying to see that how much does it cost for my phone based on the time of the usage. It could be days, it could be hours, and based on the beginning point or intercept. So as you can see over here, I do have the phone cost, and it's going to be $30 base and $10 per gigabyte. It means that if I want to have the bill, they don't care, obviously the provider, they don't care that if I use any data or not at the very beginning. They are going to charge you $30. It means that that is the base cost. You have to pay $30. After that, based on your usage per gigabyte, you have to pay $10. So if you look at this one, if you look at this condition, I can mimic that with the linear equation. Y is equals 10x plus 30. 10x is my m, or is my some kind of the changing. Again, as you can see over here, the rate itself or the slope has a unit. Why? Because we are talking about dollars per gigabyte. So I do have y is 10x plus 30, and by putting some point there, for example, at the point of 0, what do I have as y? I do have 30. What does it mean by 0? It means that I'm not using anything at this condition. After that, I'm using 1 gigabyte. So for each 1 gigabyte, I have to pay $10. And I also know that I had to pay $30 for each cost. So I do have my second point. After that, third point, fourth point, fifth point, and using that, I do have the linear, or I do have a straight line. By kind of connecting all of these points together, I can make the line itself, or I can make my story as a straight line. So let's see another example. Imagine that we are talking about the paycheck, and that kind of paycheck would start with the base value, which is $50. After that, based on my hours of working, I'm going to get paid $15 per hour. So how can I have the line itself? Easy. Again, what is the $50 or the constant thing that I would receive if this guy would be considered as B or intercept? What is the slope is 15. So I would consider that, write this down, and by putting some points, I can see I would start from here, and based on my hours working, for example, is it 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever hours, I'm going to get paid, and simple as that. Now, all the time that we do have the slope that's going to be positive, sometimes the slope was meeting negative. At what kind of condition that would happen at a time that your rise is going to be negative. What does that mean? If you remember that I talk about the rise means y2 subtracted by y1. So what would happen if I do have my y2 smaller than y1? It means that instead of just growing gradually, I'm decreasing gradually. So on that point, my m is going to be negative. So let's look at this example. So at this point, imagine that I do have 2 points. This one for the first one and this one for the second one. So obviously, you know how we can find it. I do have the first point based on some kind of y-axis and x-axis. This is my first point, or x1, y1. And based on this guy, which is my y2, and it's also x2, and using the formula, which was delta x, or y2 subtracted by y1 over x2 subtracted by x1, I can find my slope. So that would be a very good practice for you right now. Just pause the video, try to find those values. Again, they shouldn't be precise because we are training and we are some kind of practicing right now. Try to find the slope itself, and obviously it should be positive because as we can see, we are rising. On the other hand, we do have another condition like this. My point, if I consider this point over here, my point is decreasing its value. So obviously my value, or my m, is going to be some kind of negative. So again, we can use this one over here. We can use any point on our line itself. So I do have this point, and after that, for example, I would choose this point. Again, use this formula and find the slope, and the slope should be negative itself. So again, the line is a pattern. So line there is going to show us something that we don't know right now, but in the future, we are going to predict something. If you guys remember about the phone bills, we do have the constant value at the beginning. After that, by some kind of the rate based on my gigabyte, I'm going to have more and more, and I have to pay more and more. So on that time, I can find a pattern for myself, and this pattern is going to help me for future forecasting. So we do have another concept in the algebra that we call it as an arithmetic operation. Again, you shouldn't be worried about that. This is just kind of another example that how we can have linear condition, not only inside some kind of the functions and line itself, but also in other sections. So imagine that I do have a series of numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on and so forth. So obviously you can see a pattern is happening over here. That number would start from 2, and after that it would increase by 2, or I do have it like this. So on that point, I would ask you a question. What is going to be the 100th number? So right now, it means that you have to do this pattern till 100 times in order to find that specific number. So obviously you would say that it's simple. It could be something around 200. Yes, right now everything is simple, but imagine that your condition is going to be a little bit different. So right now I'm going to tell you a way that's following a linear equation, but it's going to help us in order to find our solution. So if you guys remember from the last part, we do have y is mx plus b. What does that mean? B is the beginning of the point. At this value, I do have my point, which is going to be 2 itself. The m is the rate of changes. So as you can see, it is increasing gradually, or step 2 by 2. So my m is going to be 2. After that, my x is going to be the value or the thing that I want. So at this point, we do have the specific formula for that. Is going to be a1 or an, the number at 100th position, is going to be a1, the very first number, plus n minus 1. N is what? N is the number or the position of the number that you need. N minus 1 is going to be 99, and d is going to be 2. It means that my an is going to be 2 plus 99 times the 2 itself. So if you do this calculation, you have the 200. So we are seeing right now, instead of just having the number itself or do a couple of other calculations, again, right now everything is simple, but imagine that we do have other kind of condition that it could be a little bit difficult. Rather than just finding it by 100 times 2 itself, you have to do other kind of things. So we just saw that we can mimic, or we can apply or imply some kind of the formula about the linear equation that we have over here and use it at another section of the math itself. So right now you can see that both of them are very similar. Y is equals to mx plus b. And another point, an is going to be your a1 plus n minus 1 times d. I don't want to talk about it right now. In the future, some kind of module, I would for sure talk in detail, and we are going to solve so many questions related to that. So after that, let's see another example. So imagine that I'm saving some money and I would start with $50 at the beginning. It means that my B or intercept is going to be 50 and I would going to increase that specific amount of saving by $50 per week. And if I want to have the linear condition or a straight line over there, I do have y equals 2x plus 50, and I can understand how much do I have at the beginning of the point, after one week, after 2 weeks, and after 3 weeks, and so on and so forth, so I can use it for the future prediction itself. So as you can see, I can use it for the forecasting. So after the 10th week or after 10th part, how much do I have by my account itself? So let's talk about a couple of few problems or few mistakes that I saw so many students did. So when you're talking about the y is equals mx plus b, you have to be careful. M is the rate of the change, b is the intercept or your beginning of the point. Let's look at this example. Sometimes it would happen that instead of just using this one, you would do something like that. Again, it's going to give you a number, but you have to double check your answer that is it going to make sense at the end by some kind of testing different kind of points in your equation. So after you found your equation, for example, y is equals 2x plus 5, try to use that specific point that you had and you use it in order to find that m and b in them to make sure that your y is going to be as the same as mx plus b itself or whatever equation that you found. By this way, you can make sure that you don't have any problem itself. And another point, we do have rise over run. Sometimes it would happen for students that they would get a little bit confused at what is happening. Remember, when you have your slope, when you want to find your slope or the rate of the changes, you have to look for the y on the denominator, which is going to be the rise, how much you have to change over rise, over or divided by denominator, which is how much you have changed for your x itself. If it's going to be vice versa, you're going to have some kind of different number. And at the end, try to be careful because not all the line, again, I'm going to emphasize that not all the lines are going to start from 0. Some lines are going to start from the positive intercept or positive beginning, and sometimes it's going to be start from the negative beginning. So with that all said, this was the last slide. Again, if you have any problem, please comment down below. But before that, try to some kind of rewatch these videos and also the 3 other videos that I put this YouTube channel. My name is Mahmoud Kiasari, and if you like it, please like and share and comment. Have yourself a great day, night, whatever. See you around.